I love the smell of a mobile taco in the morning. The Mobile Taco Project. That's what's coming up next on El Cara Ham Radio. Hello, folks. This is Chris, KY4CKP. Well, this week we're going to introduce a new project that I'm working on, and that is moving my radios from the Dodge Nitro that I've had for a good long time over to a 2020 Toyota Tacoma TRD off-road truck. So this is going to be the Mobile Taco Project. And we're going to use a fair amount of the kind of techniques and materials we used on my wife's 2020 4Runner. And so this won't be as long of a series as that one was, because you'll already have seen or can go and look at that series and see some of the things we did. But we're going to show some of the things we're doing, the way we're going to solve a few of the problems, and work on getting my HF radio and my UHF VHF radio, the FT891 and the ICOM ID5100, installed into the truck. So one of the first things, of course, I had to do was to start removing things out of the Nitro, pulled the radios out, worked on getting the antennas removed, and then also, as we can see here coming up, had to pull some wires, some wire harnesses out of the Nitro that I had installed, the power leads coming from the battery into the main compartment, and different things like that, the remote control head wires to control the head units of the radios. So a pretty good bundle of wires that I had to pull out of various places of the Nitro. So we've got those removed. We're pretty much ready to go on the install, and then I had to start thinking about, well, what was I going to do as far as installing the radios into this new truck. I want to do it very similar to what we did with my wife's vehicle. I want to do it as neat and clean as we can, so again, we did some similar things to solve some of the same problems, that we had with the install for her vehicle. So one of the first things I did is similar to her vehicle, is I bought a accessory mount for the Tacoma. Now, unfortunately, Rego Manufacturing, fabrication, they don't make one, at least not right now, for the Tacoma. So I found another company that makes a very nice unit. It's not inexpensive, but I think you can agree it gives a very nice clean look to it, and it also mounts very sturdy, and you can definitely mount some things to it. This is from Expedition Essentials, and this is their 3TPAM, third generation Toyota powered accessory mount. Very nice, clean install, has the two USB ports if you want or need them. And so I went with this unit. I think it matches the central dash part there very nicely. And again, it has plenty of strength in the overall installation of it. So we're going to start taking a look at how we mounted to the head units and the main units of the radios in the next section. So we'll bring you folks right back. All right, folks, here we can see a preview of the final mounting for the head units for these two radios. We'll go into sort of how I came up with the solution and what the solution looks like here in just a moment. It looks very clean, very nice, and should work very well for these radios. I've had it mounted for a while, and been driving around in the truck and everything, and it seems to be a very secure mount without a lot of bouncing and flex and stuff to it, which is why I went with that largest size RAM mount to begin with, just to make sure. It had plenty of weight carrying capacity, but I want to make sure it wasn't going to flex all that much. And then here's also a preview of how I was looking at mounting the main bodies to the radios. I did change the positioning around just a little bit, but it ended up being very similar to this, and so we'll see that again towards the later half of the video build. So it's working out nicely. I've still got some work to do, some wiring to run, but the mounting for the head units, the mounting for the main body of the radios, I've got those all figured out, and they should work very nicely. And again, it's just going to be routing some cabling, very similar to what we did in my wife's 4Runner. I should be able to run. I've got everything on the driver's side of the truck. I should be able to run everything through the sills, the door sills, just like we showed you on the passenger side of my wife's car. And it should keep all the wires pretty well hidden. Should keep it all very nice and neat and organized, and just a very clean installation for this. So again, just a quick preview for the head unit mounts and the main body mounts. And so we'll go ahead and take a look here as we keep going. This is kind of the final positioning for the radio mounts, and again, we'll kind of see a little bit more on this at the second half of the video towards the end. Using that automatic power on, automatic power off unit, APO3, start your vehicle. The VHF, HF radio will come on automatically. Shut your vehicle off. It will automatically shut off within just a few minutes typically. So I just want to preview a little bit of the hardware I used. I used these self-tapping screws, 1/2 inch length. The board I bought is 1/2 inch, and made sure they weren't going to go all the way through and that stuff. But the board's very strong. The plastic is very strong, so these work very nicely. You could use a regular type screw certainly for this. I drilled pilot holes anyway, so they didn't really need to be self-tapping. It's just what I had. And then I also bought some of these socket head cap screws, the M410-50. These work perfectly. The threads work perfectly for both the radios, the bodies of the radios, to attach them in the brackets they had. I had misplaced some of the hardware for that, so I just bought these to attach the radios. And also almost everything else is going to end up using hex keys to work with it. Now, when it came to mounting the head units, I thought for a long time, and I actually did just a lot of sort of visual searching on Amazon for the kind of bracket I wanted to use. I knew I could drill holes in things as I needed them. And I knew that with the head unit for the ID5100, it has magnets on the back, and so it can be magnetically mounted to a steel plate or something. Especially if you had a little ledge there on the bottom. And then the FT891 head unit has a single mounting hole in the center. So I just looked at a whole bunch of different steel brackets on Amazon, and I saw these triangular ones, and I said, well, it's got the little angled ledge part at the bottom that the 5100 head could sit on, and then it's steel, so the magnets will hold it. That should work pretty well. It's got that hole towards the top. I looked at my measurements and said, well, it looks like it should be tall enough to nicely hold both these units. It should be heavy duty enough to hold them. And I should have that single mounting hole for the FT891. And sure enough, they weren't very expensive, so I ordered a set. I think it was 2 or 4 that came in. And that top hole works out nicely to hold the FT891. I put in some foam there just to help handle any vibrations. And the ledge and the magnets hold the the ID5100 head unit just fine. This has been in my truck now for a couple of weeks, I guess. I haven't done. I think it was actually on there when I did off-roading not too long ago. It seems to be holding just fine. That heavy-duty mount from Ram Mounts, their largest size balls and arms. I think it's the C size. Is working out great. So this, I put up the Ram ball mount, marked the holes on it, and simply drilled them out, and use some hardware to mount that. And the head units on the front stand off a little bit, so there was plenty of room for. I cut the screws to length with a Dremel and put some nuts on there, and so the mounting for that ball unit worked out just fine. And there's they're not that close to the backs of the head units. There's no issues with it rubbing or scraping or anything. So that part was pretty easy to do. Just marked it with a Sharpie and just drilled through it. It's pretty soft steel, and just went through that. Now, I thought about tapping that for a screw or something. I just ended up not bothering. I had some screws that were plenty long, and so I just thought it was a little faster. Just drill it, and I had the nuts, and I had the clearance. If I'd had less clearance, I might have gone ahead and tapped it, because I do have a tap and die set. Here you can see that we've got the ball mounted. It's very secure. And the thickness of those C balls and arms and the weight limits they can hold, they appear to be holding those two head units just fine. There's a little bit of weight there with the bracket, but again, that extra heavy-duty size seems to be working out fine. So that's the solution we came up with for the head units, and I think it ends up with a nice clean look. Has them in a nicely accessible position there in the cab when you're sitting in the driver's seat. And you can even kind of loosen the ball and let it lay down relatively flat, and it doesn't block very much of your vision at all. It's not bad when it's up. But if somebody else is driving the vehicle or you just don't need the radios accessible, you can lay them flat and get just a little bit of that visibility back. So here we can see they're mounted. There's the foam in the center that'll just help, mitigate any vibrations and things. The arm does a pretty good job. And you've got full access to the buttons on the top edge of the FT891. And of course, the ID5100 has a touchscreen, and the buttons and things are easily accessible from the front. And here you can just see that heavy-duty ram mount attached to the ball and the arm, and the mount that'll go to the dash mount that's in the truck. So this solution seemed to work out very nicely. You just never know when you're doing this stuff. These brackets may not have worked out. I may have had to order some other ones, but it did work out, so that's nice. And none of that was really all that expensive. The ram mounts aren't all that cheap, but they are very nicely engineered. They're very strong. So sometimes you get what you pay for. The dash mount's not inexpensive, but again, to me, it was a case of it looks really nice and it's working really well. So I thought that was worth putting some money into. And then those brackets, though, they were pretty cheap. I think it was $15 for 2 or 4. I forget how many was in that pack. And if I hadn't used them here, I probably would have figured out somewhere else to use them, some other project down the road. So the head unit part's pretty well worked out. Now we've got the radios. Well, the radios are pretty simple. I decided to go with a pretty similar solution to what we did in my wife's 4Runner, using that heavy-duty plastic. I got another 12 by 24-inch board, but instead of a full inch thick, I just got the half-inch. For this application, I didn't really feel like I needed the extra strength of the full inch. These radios are lighter, the weight's more spread out, and so I didn't think bowing or bending was going to be much of an issue. But again, it's UV resistant and it's water resistant, so it's not like regular plywood or something that could degrade and stuff over time. You see, I mounted the brackets with five of the screws. I want to make a nice heavy-duty mount because, again, I do want to do some at least light to moderate off-roading and just going camping and things. And I also put the radios in. I angled the brackets so they're pointing sort of uphill, if you will, towards the top. Board is going to be standing vertical in the storage space behind the driver's side, rear seat. And I also mounted the head units or the base units so they're angled up in the bracket. So they're lifted up on the front off that board a little bit more, just to make them a little bit more visible, because the back end of these units is where you would do most of your fiddling. There's not that much on the front. And then, of course, you can see the automatic power on-off device, the APO3 mounted right there next to the ID5100 base. So that's pretty much it for part one. We've got the main hardware mounted. Now we just need to work on the antennas. And then we're also going to be working on the running the cables for power, the control wires for the head units, and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty much it, folks. We'll wrap this one up and we'll bring you right back. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for part one of the Tacoma mobile radio install project. Join us for the next parts. There'll be one, maybe two more parts in this little series. And as always, re-release videos every Friday. So we'll see you folks in the next video. This is Chris, KY4CKP, for Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association 73.